region that you think would not have happened without Eastern Partnership policy? Achievement, main failure, and one recommendation for the future.
Thank you very much, Natalie. First of all, thank you very much, because every time someone is just about to utter my name, I feel guilt, because struggling with my name is not an easy thing, and you did it so well. So thank you very much. And thank you very much also, Thomas, for this excellent initiative and an opportunity to engage with the civil society in this collective thinking, collective analysis, which is extremely important, and also very happy to be in the company of Madame Alieva and a very good friend from the times we worked together in New York with Thomas. The question you are raising is perhaps it can be squeezed into a few sentences, but the thinking behind it is much, much deeper. Now, one thing I think every time I think about it is that when we say Eastern Partnership, I always remind myself it is part of the neighborhood policy, European neighborhood policy. But are we European neighbors, or we are Europe? Are we getting closer to Europe, or we are Europe? That is the fundamental question. Because I think it is insistence on consolidating Europe through all those mechanisms that we have, through all those platforms that we have. Again, with Thomas, we have that advantage of having been to the UN and seeing the world it becomes so obvious that Europe has a huge advantage of multiplicity of platforms for regional cooperation. Not every region in the world is so blessed. Perhaps because Europe has seen so much, well, first of all, of course, the philosophical background behind that, but also so much calamity. Just 75 years ago, in fact, it's not too far away, there is still living memory of what was Europe 75 years ago. And out of that calamity, this urge to work together against the repetition of that calamity has created this multiplicity of platforms, from what was the evolution of the European Union. There was another organization, the Council of Europe. There is another organization, the OSCE. Each of them reflects the sub-regional organizations, various initiatives like the V4, and Eastern Partnership. To me, this is part of the big picture. And behind it is that sense of a European. We are different. Members of the European Union are different. We are all different, but we are all European. And what is meant by that? I think the first important question is the values. Civilizational links, civilizational cohesion, and the values. And that values is about what we're talking about. Human rights, democracy, freedom, rule of law, and so on and so forth. And the way in which we can consolidate this throughout our cooperation, it's a consistent problem. Now, I think what is good about the achievement about the Eastern Partnership is that we have been consolidating that sense of belonging. We have different perceptions of our security. We have different arrangements of our security. And Armenia represents such example, that we will go out of our way to build our security architecture in a way that it consolidates our huge sense, security consciousness. Now, you may consider this a bit provocative, but so often one might hear about the Eastern Partnership and the Russian context in that. It's like, is it about Russia? Is it not about Russia? Now, serious? Do you want me to talk about this? Then I will say my security concern is Turkey. Have you ever been talking about it? I have a security condition which seriously undermines my sense of security. So to us, this is not about geopolitics. First of all, it is about values. And in fact, when it comes to values, yes, we have been benefiting greatly from this cooperation. What we have in Armenia is the product, the fruit of that cooperation. I'm very proud to see the wonderful Armenian civil society, who are so, demanding. And we have so much interaction in which we are so often grilled. But this is the way in which you test your action as a government and test your accountability. What happened in Armenia in April, May 2018 was exactly that product in which this entire evolution of the Armenian state has found its manifestation in the months of April and May. That we were building a society, a country, according to a certain model we have chosen. We have been tripping on it quite often. We had tragic moments in our history, like March 2008. We had many others beyond that. But we have been consistent in building that resilience of the society to absorb what we call collective values and then materialize it, make it tangible. And that is April, May. So that brings us to a point that what is next? I think the next thing is consolidation of this. And also we have to be very, very sensitive about everything we say about values. When I was back years ago in the Council of Europe, I had a bad joke. I was saying, this looks like a caste society. If you are in the European Union, you are the high caste. You are immediately qualified as the perfect democracy with no problem. And beyond any discussion, any doubt, any scrutiny. And then it goes down, and then us, the low caste. So I think we have to be very careful about values. There is so much challenge in today's collective agenda of Europe to what we call the common values. And that sensitivity is very, very important. The next 10 years, it's about settling down about the kind of Europe that has been evolving since 1989 and consolidating that Europe since 1989. We may be in different frameworks of cooperation, different security formats, different ways of building our national agenda. We're all driven by our national agenda, by our national interest. But consolidating that collective Europe, collective European agenda, the Eastern Partnership, I think, is a considerably important part of that broader architecture of what is the great project of Europe. So that, to me, is the broad agenda before us for the next phase. And there are many specifics how to build it, which I think will come up in our interactive. There were various interesting discussions, various interesting ideas floating now about what to do next. And those are all subject to our collective discussion, assessment. The Polish colleagues have come up with some very precise ideas, very interesting. Let's discuss, let's continue working to amplify the instruments in our hand. But at the heart of it is the idea of Europe, which has become so accessible to those who attach themselves to that idea. Thank you.
How to ensure that, let's say, this potential of the civil society that is still outside fully taken on board?
I think we have a problem with the definition of civil society. If we consider civil society as just a bunch of people of a certain number who then happen to be in the government, then that is the wrong definition of civil society. Civil society, the best thing you can do about civil society is don't suppress them. Let them free, and they will do the rest. And civil society is every single person in our countries. It's a much bigger thing. It's the capacity of the public to organize itself around interests and around matters which concern public life. Now, one of the interesting things is that what we are trying to encourage, you can call it business community, but it is, after all, it is the channeling of the public order for the service from the government. For example, we encourage are, for example, in the IT sector and innovation sector and so on, they are the best in organizing themselves. And what we're telling them is that, give us orders. What do you want? What kind of service should we, the government, offer to you? Another fantastic example, of course, again, the European experience, the European Union experience, and the SEPA experience. We are in the middle of this SEPA implementation roadmap, and we have established 4 dimensions. We had the general broad gatherings, and then we have divided into groups in which we work on certain areas, like the 4 groups on justice, freedoms, rule of law, and so on economic aspects, and so on sectoral, on sectoral issues. That is not a helpful mechanism. It's a fundamentally important mechanism. It's not just about engaging. It's about making sure that your policies reflect properly. The government cannot know everything. But it is through this process that you define the precision of the public service that is required from you. I just see here the representatives of the civil society which work heavily with the media, in other fields, in rule of law, in the way in which our justice system works. We have a lot of challenges and important issues to deal with, like the justice system. That after the revolution, when, for example, if you take the justice system, when there was a general kind of setting of the new rule, no more phone calls from the powers, the offices of the powers, to the judges. It was, oh, perfect, fine, good, now what are we going to do? That's an interesting situation. So we have a lot of work to do about the way in which the justice system is the justice system which is independent, the way in which they exercise their power. The same is about many, many other areas. So civil society is not a limited number of people. Civil society is the public which organizes itself in channeling that, the public demand for the government to to deliver services in a better and a quality way. Again, in our society, our politics may be quite shrill, quite confrontational, quite high-pitched, but this is the way we are. This is the way we are. This is the way we build our engagement. And I find it good. I find it important. Through this debate and through this argument, we assess what is right and what is wrong. Not everything is perfect, but this is the right way to build our public life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister, for moving away, let's say, from this more technical definition maybe of civil society, which might be civil society organization that I was referring to. But it's extremely important to involve indeed the broad public into the processes that you have been mentioning, and the European Union have been supporting both.
Absolutely.
The involvement of civil society organizations and the public, the broad public into policy-making process. And my question to Mr. Thomas Mary-Harting would be, let's say, within the frame of the...
So it's some Armenian secret, how you can...
It's called diplomacy.
I am from Azerbaijan, representing Publish Initiative Center. I have a question to Mr. Mnatsakanyan.
Following the association agreements.
Okay.
The web one there and one there.
No.
Okay, basically, I guess my question is to everyone with the exception of Minister Mnatsakanyan.
Thanks for views.